Why is trying to find housing as a disabled person so difficult? Hi, if you're new here, my name is Isa, and I'm a disabled writer and advocate and incoming first-year PhD student, which means that I have to move. I'm a wheelchair user, I'm chronically ill, I have a service dog. It's a lot going on, and today I spent the day touring apartments in my new town that I'll be moving into, and I am exhausted for multiple reasons. Going into today, I had reached out to 4 separate apartments, 2 of which had contacted me back and confirmed the appointment either through email or the phone. The third one said, don't need an appointment, just show up. And then the fourth one never got back to me. So the first one I went to today, apartment A, I showed up and I was like, hey, I'm here for my appointment. And I got my wheelchair out and I got my service dog. And they said, what appointment? And I said, the one you confirmed online, the one I confirmed through email. Actually, I was emailing you, I'm pretty sure. So the leasing office lady was like, we don't have any apartments to show you. And can you come back next week? And I was like, not next week for sure. And I don't know if I will be coming back because I had emailed specifically about coming to see and you had confirmed, but okay. And when I left, I was worried that either A, they didn't have the apartments on a first floor to show me, which is fine. I didn't tell anyone I was a wheelchair user before coming in. I'm not stressed about it. Like, that was my choice. It was kind of my little advocacy moment where I'm like, I kind of think that everything should be wheelchair accessible. And I also don't want people to, I want to see what people's first reaction to me being a wheelchair user are, so that I know what kind of apartment complex and what kind of people who are renting the apartment complex are when I get there. Other concern was that they just didn't want me living there because of my service dog or my wheelchair or whatever. So my roommate called because my roommate wasn't with me and was like, pretended to be in town. I was like, hey, can I see one of your units? And they're like, no, we don't have any available right now. So at least that was not discrimination. And they were giving the same message to everybody. I might go back just to give it a look, but only when I go to my doctor's appointment in town later this month. But because I was kind of upset about that experience, when we were driving, my mom saw a really nice apartment complex and just pulled into it. She's like, I know it's probably outside your price range, but let's just stop and look. And I'll ask them what the price is, and if it's too high, we won't even bother going in. We came back, it was at the top end of my price range, so we decided to take a tour. It was really, really nice. They had fantastic amenities, but the thing that got me was that everything was wheelchair accessible. Like, they had sidewalks, and it's not like they had a door. It's not like things were overly ADA accessible, everything I needed, that kind of stuff. The bathrooms were perfect. No, it was just the sidewalks were accessible. There was no lip or step to get into the apartment complex. It was wide. The floors were very nice, as in like the kitchen area. I could use my wheelchair in the kitchen. I could use my wheelchair in the living space and that kind of stuff. And all of that was just super nice and rare up to that point because I had seen a few apartments before. That price is real bad. It's real bad. So then we went to apartment B, which was the second one that I had emailed before. This expensive apartment was not on the list, was not on the plan, because I would have not put it on the list because it was too expensive. I got to apartment B and the leasing office wasn't accessible at all. I gave them a benefit of the doubt. I called them and was like, hey, do you have any wheelchair accessible entrance that I'm just not seeing? And they're like, no, but I can come out to you. The guy was one who had called me and he was really nice. But he also said the only first floor unit to show me was in the back and there wasn't a ramp to get there. And I had to like jump the curb. It was a whole thing. And then we get to the apartment itself and there's a step to get into the apartment. And I just could not get myself up and I wasn't going to fight it because I'm not, after a long day, wanting to fight a step to get into the apartment. Walk through the apartment because I'm ambulatory and I sometimes use that. But it was obviously smaller than what they had listed. And when we finished, he's like, okay, well, do you have any questions? We can like talk about pricing and we can talk about these. And I was like, actually, I'm honestly just looking for something that is more accessible. He did say, he's like, if you need accessible unit, then just let me know by June. And he kept saying that word, accessible, the accessible unit. And I was like, oh, so you have units that are wheelchair accessible, like they have an accessible bathroom and living space. And he's like, oh no, our units are cookie cutter, but we have a ramp that goes up to some of the buildings. I was honest and I was like, look, I am really looking for some place that is more accessible, especially one that I can get into the leasing office. I don't want to live in a place that I have to send my roommate to talk to the leasing office every time. Then we went to apartment C. Now, this complex had been the top of my list because it was one of the cheapest options. It had the most space, it had the most amenities. Like, it really just seemed ideal. We get there, it is very nice. Like, if we had not been to the expensive apartments, it would have been the nicest place that we've been to all day. And they had a ramp up to the leasing office. I really appreciated that. And I did get stuck in the door and I hurt my hand just a tiny bit. I know you can't really tell, but it just scraped it up a little bit. The doors were just tiny bit not wide enough, which is not the end of the world. It's fine. It's nothing more that I deal with on an everyday basis. It's just that I had been to the expensive one, which was so nice and so accessible. Another thing I didn't really like is that when we got back in the car to go the tour, because we had to drive to go do the tour because we had to find a place that was on the first floor, there was a golf cart and the lady pulled the golf cart up in the lines by the accessible parking spot. I was like, I don't like that. And then the ramp to get to the apartment, they had a ramp at all of the complexes. However, it ends in a parking spot. So not the wheelchair accessible parking spot or the space, like it ends where the car starts. I didn't end up using my wheelchair to walk through that apartment just because we were trying to hurry. My mom had another meeting to get to. We were FaceTiming my roommate, but the space itself is really great. The amenities were pretty much everything that was being offered at the more expensive place for substantially less. It was just not as nice as the expensive place, obviously. But it was the accessibility that got me. And I really was, we drove back to the expensive place so that we could FaceTime my roommate during that tour. And they gave us a whole nother tour. It was super nice. At the end of the day, I would have to work a second job in order to afford the more expensive place. And that's what frustrates me, is that when we're talking about the amenities and we're talking about all of the things that I really, really want, the things that I really would love to have are just access, just simple little access needs, like having a cut curb that is not directly going into a parking spot. And I shouldn't have to pay premiums for that service. I didn't even make it to the last apartment because I'm so tired. And that's the other thing, is that every time I look at apartments, I'm sacrificing my energy and taking time that I usually spend recovering for the week and, so that I'm ready to go back to work during the week. It's a lot and it's exhausting. And I know I'm going to have to be more careful. I'm going to have to be sure not to overextend myself and be able to take the full next weekend. I'll probably be sleeping all of next weekend and sleeping every moment I have this next week. And this is the part that frustrates me when I'm talking about the barriers to higher education, because this is one of the barriers. I had a conversation with the director of the graduate program because I was like, hey, I have this second job that I would like to do, but do you guys have any limits of what we're able to do? And he was just very honest. He's like, if you work a substantial amount of hours every week, you won't have a lot of time working on your actual program stuff, which means that it's going to be harder for you to finish, means that it's going to take you longer, which means it's going to take you longer to get a higher paying job. Specifically, he said, was like, if you're willing to sacrifice just a little bit of a nicer housing and just a little bit of extra income and fun things for the next 4 years so that you can get to a nicer job, it's going to pay you back more in the long run. The hard part is I'm still a disabled student for the next 4 years. And the truth is, for this next year, we're probably, if we're gonna, as is right now, I mean, we can't tie anything down. We're not gonna tie anything down. There might be some place that pops up between now and it's time to put a deposit, but we're leaning towards the cheaper option because I can make it work at the moment. I can figure something out if I can't get my wheelchair out of the car. It's not the end of the world. I currently live in housing that is not fully accessible. There's just so much work involved in being disabled in general, but also being disabled and trying to pursue a career, let alone a career in higher ed. And I know it's work. I made this decision. I don't regret it. I'm very excited about this opportunity and getting to do something new and exciting and do the research that I love. But I also want to do all of that by being genuine and saying it's friggin' hard. And it's not hard because I'm difficult. It's hard because the world is not built for people like me, and it should be. It shouldn't be this huge price difference to have the ability to get into the house. I'm not even asking for like an accessible bathroom or a, you know, a kitchen where all of the cabinets and everything are lower. I wish that things were generally like doorways were wider, you know, just small accommodations that would make life so much easier. And I wish it was standard so that when people come over to my house that I don't have to tell another wheelchair user, hey, these are the accommodations I have to make to live in my living space. I can't have another wheelchair. I could have another wheelchair user come to my living space, but it'd be very difficult for them right now. And it shouldn't be that way. And I hate that that is the place, the world that we live in. And I hope that by doing this research, and I hope by talking about it on this channel, that we can collectively work on making better solutions, and that we can hold places accountable for making things more accessible, and especially old buildings that like, these are some changes that need to be made. I don't care if you're old, like the parking spot does not have to be there, you know, that kind of stuff. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to me ramble this week. If you want to follow my journey, please like and subscribe. I would love for you to join me. If you have any advice, if you've gone through this before, please leave it down below, because this is my first real apartment. I've lived on university housing before, but I've not had an apartment, and that is a scary, scary prospect for me. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great night.